To start off, the state of the water and industry, can you both tell me why water matters to the success of your companies? Let's start with you, Larry, and PepsiCo.
Sure. Well, when you think about us, we're a food and beverage company, so really water is what we're all about. Certainly on our beverage products, it's a primary ingredient. And so it's really, really important for us because it's the essence of our products. On our food processing side, we use a lot of water there for sanitation, and certainly, it's important there as well. Really, water on our beverage products is almost integral with our reputation, and that's, I guess, particularly true on our bottled water products, which is, when people buy water, that's what they get. So they're really looking for a good quality product there again. So it's part and parcel with our reputation. So if you look at our overall operations, we've got roughly 290 manufacturing facilities scattered across the globe. And again, that's a mixture of food and beverage and dairy operations. So we've got a pretty broad footprint when it comes to water. And having a clean and reliable water supply is absolutely essential to the business. And having good quality water that's basically available to us is absolutely key for us. So, in our beverage water, we do a lot of treatment to make sure that we've got, good, really high quality water going into our beverage products. But again, regardless of the treatment and regardless of the source, a key thing that for us, and I'll be talking about this some more, I think, as we go through today, is just making sure that you've got water available in the first place.
Thanks, Larry. Wade, why does water matter to Cabot?
Well, at Cabot, we have about 50 facilities in 30 countries, and we use water for non-contact cooling, but it's also an input to our process. We actually use direct injection of water to cool some of our gaseous product streams, and so that means anything that's in the water itself or an impurity could end up in our product. So depending on what we're making for a product, processed water, filtered water may be acceptable, but in other cases, we might have to use high-quality reverse osmosis water. And so it's really important to us because the water quality directly affects the purity of our product and the final quality characteristics that our customers are looking for.
Thanks, Wade. And staying with you, what are the greatest water-related issues challenging Cabot's quality requirements? What challenges are you looking to resolve in, say, the next 5 years?
Well, for us, like Larry said, water availability is important. A lot of our sites, our water quality can really be characterized as very bad quality water that we're starting with. When we build new facilities, we don't expect to find pristine, clean water anymore. Sometimes we're drilling a well, and even if we're drilling a well, we may have high TDS. We have one of our sites that the well water coming out of the Midwest is 500 parts per million total dissolved solids. Another site we have, our water source is the wastewater from another facility, so we have to clean it up to meet our production standards. And we're always looking at ways to reuse water in our facilities, trying to reduce the amount of water we need in the first place. And one thing we've seen is as we reuse more water, we also have to pay attention to the temperature of the water we're discharging. As water reuse increases, we've got less mass there to absorb the heat and reduce the temperature. And this was something when we originally started doing a lot of water reuse, we didn't pay attention to and started running into problems.
Thanks, Wade. Larry, what about the challenges that are on PepsiCo's radar?
Well, expanding on that idea of availability, I think the biggest challenge that we're looking at today is that of water scarcity. So in a lot of places, we're starting to look at the question of whether water will be available to us at all in some geographies. In some areas, the water scarcity issue is so large that we're beginning to look at whether we may have to relocate some manufacturing facilities from those areas. And certainly with looking at all of that, we're trying to be as proactive as we can to find different ways to use water efficiently and reuse water where that's appropriate. So, all in all, I think we're looking at alternatives that allow us to source water that's ultimately suitable and to be able to do it in a cost-effective way, because the more you have to treat it, of course, the more expensive everything becomes.
And what about regulations, Larry? Are there water-centric regulatory drivers that PepsiCo is concerned with?
Well, again, the water withdrawal and removal from the watershed, again, related to this water scarcity question, is getting to be a challenge. Regulations limiting how you can reuse water are also showing up and proving to be a bit of a challenge. In some jurisdictions, for example, there are blind statutory requirements that say you just can't reuse water in certain ways. And those types of regulations, I think, are well intended, but they can really be problematic when you're trying to reduce your water footprint. Some of these, again, are prohibitory, or they say you can reuse water in specific ancillary purposes. And I think a lot of these regulations are written with domestic wastewater as the assumed starting point with your water. So, you know, maybe it's a good rationale for limiting where you can reuse water in that context. But, you know, the risks are just not the same when you're talking about processed waters or processed wastewaters. And, you know, getting to that point there where I was just talking about waters or wastewaters, to help manage the perceptions around this, I've really been promoting this within our company to talk about this in terms of processed waters. Let's not even call them wastewaters, because when you use that term, for a lot of folks, it gins up the idea of sanitary waste. And again, it's not the same. The risks and challenges with processing waters are very different. And again, in some jurisdictions, the regulations just don't seem to account for those differences.
That's definitely a concern that we see across industries when it comes to water reuse. Thanks, Larry. Wade, what regulations concern Cabot in being able to operate efficiently?
Well, the pressures on Cabot are almost the opposite, where we see more pressure to actually reuse as much water and wastewater as possible. We recently renewed the water permits at one of our facilities, and the interpretation of some of the EPA rules changed, and we suddenly had to become a zero discharge facility with respect to our processed wastewater streams. As a result, we've been spending a lot of time going through looking at different treatment methods and segregating our wastewater. One of those things we've put a lot of effort into is segregating our stormwater, rainwater runoff, so it no longer goes into our wastewater system and can be discharged directly. Under a previous permit, we just had combined flows, so the rainwater and processed water were mixed together, and we just treated it and discharged it. Now all of our processed water, or at least as much as possible, we have to recycle and reuse in the plant again. The other thing we've seen at other facilities, as I mentioned before, is as we reuse more of the water, the heat builds up in the system, and so we have to have ways to manage the heat. At Cabot, probably our biggest concern is reducing the total amount of discharge of wastewater, and that's where we get a lot of pressure. Most of our wastewater is discharged to a POTW, and so we're going to reduce the cost of discharging it to them, reduce the volume, and that ultimately saves us money.
Thanks, Wade. What about your company's use of water and how it affects your relationship with customers? Wade, staying with you, how important is water to that relationship on a 1 through 5 scale?
As far as water usage, our customers generally aren't concerned with the amount of water we're using in our process for making the product, but they do pay a lot of attention to the quality. We're often making some chemicals that are high purity chemicals, some of which go into the electronics industry, where any impurity would be important to them. And so I would say the usage is a 1 or 2, but the quality is very important. I have 4 or 5 for some of our products. And where we'll see it is contaminants in the finished products. Sometimes it's a chemical contaminant, and sometimes it's just simply grit and hard material that came in with the water and ended up in the product. We may have to use RO water, demon water to meet the requirements, and sometimes we'll start with some dirty water and make that RO so that we can reuse it within our plant. We also will take high TDS well water or recovered water from our process and reuse it in our plant. so that we're using more of it within our facility.
And do you see any of your customer base changing? Is there pressure on them to report water per product, for instance?
We don't get a lot of pressure from our customers, but we do, as a company, we have people watching at how we manufacture our product. We publish a sustainability report that reports our water use and how we're trying to continuously improve on that.
Great insights, Wade. Thanks. Larry, since PepsiCo is making beverages and snacks, I guess you would rate that relationship much higher?
Yes. Again, because of the nature of the products, again, particularly beverages, I think we would put that as a 5. Again, because for beverages, the water is really, that's the essence of the product, and having good quality water there is absolutely essential. It's sort of the given. If you don't start with that, then you don't have a product to produce. And again, on the beverage side, there's a lot of water treatment that goes on there. But even for other products, you got to have good basic water quality. So, no matter what it is, it's really important for us to be able to show our customers that we're being as water efficient as we can when we're producing our products. We're seeing, the calls for reporting on our water efficiency that are coming from a number of fronts, and certainly in our sustainability reporting, that's a big factor for us.